Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Knockout Analysis, presented by the one, the only, CronYo Media. Shout out Britton Yoder for this flag from way back in the original days of CronYo Media. Today, we will be talking about UFC 315, the middest of pay-per-views that we've had in a while, but a pay-per-view nonetheless. It's a big ticket card with two championship fights on it. So, without further ado, let's first talk about the Iowa fucking disaster that happened last week for me and my predictions. It was not a good week for me. Witt fared much better than I did, but Jeremy Stevens, crowd favorite, lost a decision. Witt's favorite fighter, Bo Nickel, knocked out for the first time and handed his first defeat. Rest in peace, Davidson Figueiredo's leg. That was not a pretty sight. Other than that, most of the other fights on that card were pretty head scratching if you went by lines. If you went by lines, they were head scratching. If you didn't go by lines, then it was just another day at the office. What are your thoughts on the Iowa card?
I mean, dude, none of it really mattered to me after what happened at Bo Nickel. I said it was the craziest line I've ever seen. And to go back and listen to it, I think everything I said was valid. And it turned out to be what it was. The guy has never faced adversity at this level. And he faced a lot of it very quickly and he crumbled. But, and I even said at the end of the video, at the end of my rant, that I thought he could have been like a top 10 fighter. I heavily doubt that even after that performance because it was as bad as I was expected, but I was surprised. It was bad as I was expected. I was like, damn. But good luck to Bo. Davis Figueredo, he is an absolute legend. I don't know if he'll ever come back. I don't know the extent of the injury quite yet, but I don't know if he'll ever come back. He probably won't be a top 8 fighter at bantamweight, unfortunately. But I hope he gets a dope retirement fight, and I hope he absolutely clobber fucks a fool one last time because he is an absolute legend of the sport. But today, we
Hall of
got some big
Famer
fish
for
to
sure.
fry. Indeed.
Yes, we do
Goat.
have some big fish to fry. Again, this is UFC 315 and at Bell Center in Montreal, Canada. This will be May 10th at I believe the early prelims start at 6:30 for the whatever hell time frame. I don't even fucking know. Yeah, I think it's going to be a late night fight for sure. Um, that being said, let's roll right into it. Our first fight, we have the Canadian Brad Katona versus the Kazakhstan native Bekzat Almakin, I think is how you say it. Both of these young fellers coming off of a loss in their last fights. We have a 16-4 record for Katona and an 11-2 record for Bekzat. Again, these guys are from Canada and Kazakhstan. Katona calls himself Superman. He has one knockout win, which is not very Superman like of you. He lost his last fight to Matsumoto, and I don't know. Okay, sometimes this UFC website is weird and it just shows fights and it's just blank. It doesn't tell you what actually happened. So in his last three fights, he's 1-2. Not very great. That being said, let's go check out his opponent, Beksat Almakin, I believe is how you say it. Once more, I am not Kazakhstanian, so I cannot tell you for sure. This guy calls himself the Tehran Warrior. He has 9 wins by knockout, which is a little bit better. Maybe he should be called Superman. He has one fight in the UFC. I believe that's Khabib's cousin that he fought, Umar, and he did not win. He lost by unanimous decision. That's a tough fight to win in your UFC debut because, again, that's Khabib's cousin. or brother, one of the two. I'm not exactly sure what relation is. That being said, I think that Bekzat's fight was a better loss, and I have him winning this fight probably in a 29-28 decision.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those fights where it's a bad stylistic matchup for both guys. Brad Katona is a known snooze fest in the UFC. This is his second stint. He is, I believe, the only guy to ever win the Ultimate Fighter twice. You know, he is a brave champ after he got cut from the UFC, and he's really only beaten jobbers at this level. You know, he has a random win over Bryce Mitchell during the Ultimate Fighter. You know, that was 7 years ago. But what he does is he's going to wrestle you. He's going to sit in half guard and he's just going to try to get control. He's not going to land a whole lot of damaging strikes. He's not really a threat in that area. And on the other side, we have a complete opposite fighter. You know, Begsat, Almanian, you know, or Almakin. I'm struggling with the name too. This guy, I mean, he's obviously has a lot of power in his hands. Is a very good striker based off his resume. You know, I believe he said it was 9 knockouts. And coming in, fighting Umar, who's going to be a very high level grappler. He absolutely dominated him. I believe he 30-25'd him in that fight. He controlled him for 11 and a half minutes. You know, didn't finish him on the ground, which I commend for Begsat, but against Brad Katona, I mean, I think it could present him some trouble if he cannot get off the ground. You know, I don't love the odds. You know, I would pick Begsat around -150. I'm going to pick him to win this fight. I think he's going to have learned from his last fight. And I don't think Brad Katona's on a level as an Umar wrestling wise. So I'm going to take Begsat. I think this is going to be. I'm going to line it up with you, man. It's probably going to be around a 29-28 decision. He gets controlled for a round.
So what you're saying is his opponent this time is not Khabib trained in wrestling.
No. He's a very solid wrestler that can beat jobbers, but I hold Begsat in higher regard. That's all I got to say about it. Shit.
Well,
Shit.
We'll move on to the next fight. Daniel Santos out of Brazil fighting Jongyong Lee out of South Korea. I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Barnes, with your ever so quick show research. I think this is... Okay, no, it's definitely not. They have it listed on the UFC website like this is Lee's UFC debut, which it is clearly not. He has fought 3 times. He's 2-1. His last fight came to a brutal end in 1 minute and 5 seconds when he was knocked out cold.
36 punch
that was
combo.
That was his first UFC loss. He has 4 wins by knockout, 3 wins by submission. In 11 fights, he has 7 finishes, dubbed the Korean Tiger. Facing Daniel Santos with a 12-2 record, 6 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission. Fake-ass Brazilian. If I remember right, Daniel Santos fought on a card not too long ago. Did he not? Because I remember somebody being named the Willy Cat in one of our first cards that we looked at.
It's
But
not
maybe
showing up
I'm
on
wrong.
ESPN either. I mean, I know he was scheduled to fight a few times, but ESPN's not showing anything either. It says his last time he actually fought was 2023 in June,
Against
which I didn't think
Munoz.
was accurate either. Yeah.
Well, I remember maybe there's more than one person named the Willy Cat in the UFC, but I remember somebody being named the Willy Cat fighting in one of our early cards. That being said, fake ass Brazilian, you've only got 2 submissions. That's crazy work for me. I think Jongyong Lee bounces back from his knockout loss. I mean, I don't know what you're seeing on ESPN because I use UFC, but the line is even on this fight. I agree with it, but I think Jongyong Lee wins this fight by 2nd round TKO.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've just did some quick research here. He has had because I remember this name quite a bit because he was scheduled to fight Said Nurmagomedov last year. A lot of people were calling it Oliveira Khabib diet, because it's one of Khabib's relatives, and Daniel Santos kind of looks like Charles Oliveira in a way because he's Brazilian to some, and he was also supposed to fight Davy Grant on one of these last cards. So he's had a lot of fights canceled. He's been trying to get in there, but he's had a little to no luck. But I'm gonna try to keep
Davy
this.
Grant would have been, I believe, the UFC London card. I think that's
Yeah,
where I remember.
hmm indeed, and I think that Davy Grant would have won that fight, but he luckily has a new opponent, and he's moving up from 135 to featherweight according to ESPN. Zhang Young Lee, I remember him specifically on that fight. He got knocked out in minute 7 by Hyder Mill. He ate a 36 punch combo in that fight, straight out, and that kind of just has boosted Hyder Mill's stock. He was a underdog in his last fight as well. Also, absolutely clobbered the dude. Hyder Mill's been on a tear. He's a man on a mission. He's 34. Enough about him. The last memory I have of Young Ung Lee is him eating a 36 punch combo. Daniel Santos is at a shoot box. Shoot box has a lot of crazy spinning attacks. Those guys really like to fight the same out of there. I think this guy's hungry for a fight. I think he's been training. I think he's been ready. And I'm just going to take him because he has the lighter man skill and he's out of Brazil. And Jung Young Lee, well, obviously he has some defensive flaws that he needs to work on. I will say that Daniel Santos, I don't know if he has the ability to knock somebody out, especially at this level, especially up a weight class. I'm going to say he 30-27s him to a decision.
Fair enough. I'll let you have the next one, my friend.
Oh, wee woo. This is going to be an absolute fucking war, ladies and gentlemen. Because this is an eliminator bout. It's kind of winner but go home for both of these guys. They're both on losing streaks. Bruno Silva, man, his career's taken a crazy turn because, he was something in one, like 18-1 or something like that before the Pereira fight. Let me go figure out that exact number because I kind of want to know at this point. I lied to you on that number. I lied to you good people. I'm glad I got to look at it. He was 21-5, looking like a great prospect and all this stuff. And then he fought Alex Pereira and took probably about 5 fights worth of damage in that one fight and didn't get knocked out. His nickname Blindado is like Stone Chin is what the name means because this guy just doesn't get knocked out and he just gets hit in the head repeatedly. That's kind of what he's known for in Brazil, and he has some good knockout power as well. But he has taken some losses. The Chris Weidman fight was a little weird. There was a lot of fouls in there. He's also fought against some really good fighters. Brendan Allen, top 10 fighter in the division. Sharm Magomedov, one of the better strikers in the world. He knows how to win fights. GM3, talked about him recently. I respect these losses, but what I don't respect is what he did in his last fight against Nardiev. He went out there, he looked really listless. He didn't look like he wanted to be there. He got controlled easily, and his body language was really poor. So that's why he's in this position, I believe, against Marc-Andre Barriault, who is not having much better luck himself. And I don't think he's fought the same level of competition. I think he's in the UFC for one reason and one reason only, is because he doesn't really care. He's really entertaining. He's going to go out there and he's going to put on a show. And he did just that in his last fight against Stoltzfus. He was a pretty big favorite against and he got knocked out. He was fodder for Joe Pyfer. I just think this guy's going to throw caution to the wind. He's in front of a home crowd. If Bruno Silva can come out here and look good, I looked at his Instagram a little bit before coming to pick this fight. I think he's in better spirits. I think he's at a better mentality right now, and I think he realizes what's at stake. He realizes his career is at stake, and I think he's going to be able to control himself. He's going to be more controlled in this fight, and I think he's going to land a knockout in the first round.
I just was looking at his record. He's 1-5 in his last 6. God, both
Mm.
of these guys are going through it.
It's gonna be an absolute war, man.
Body bags Piper knocked that young feller out in a minute and a half. I think the same thing that you just said. I think that for Silva. I think that Silva, I mean, he's got 23 career wins, 20 of those wins by knockout. Dude's an absolute headhunter with a stone chin. And that's exactly what's going to happen. He's going to get knockout 21. He's going to send Marc Andre Barrio, however the fuck you say it, into his retirement. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. And I think he does it in the first round.
Hey, man. Aligned with the picks, man.
Now, Witt does this thing every week where he names himself after the fighter that it is his dubbed fight week, which is bullshit because last week his name wasn't Bo Nickel, and that's absolute bullshit. That being said, Mr. Barnes, take it away. It's Navajo Sterling fight week.
Hey, man, I had Rainer DeRitter last week, and he ended up winning that
I
bitch.
know.
But we got Navajo Sterling this week. Whereas Ivan Erslan, I really respect what the UFC's doing here with Navajo Sterling. A lot of people were disappointed with his last fight, but he was just a lot better than Tukatokos, who I think is in that sect of fighters that is a cage hugging fraud, but is also a jobber and probably one of the worst 5 fighters. And you'd like, what? Well, why did he not knock him out? Because this guy tried to hug the cage, and he was shooting and failing takedowns over and over again, to where Navajo couldn't do anything. Because he almost finished him in the first. He was throwing leg kicks. He was throwing hooks in the pocket. He's very calculated. He fights out of city kickboxing home to guys like Israel Adesanya, Carlos Olberg, some smaller guys too, like smaller in stature, not in name. Kai Kara France, and then we got Alexander Volkanovski. So they train a bunch of champion level fighters. They train champion level fighters his size too. And he is a very nice, crisp kickboxer. He's going to take his time in the cage. And a lot of people wanted a decision. They were disappointed. I think he is a blue chip level prospect. And he's 27 years old. He has great athleticism. He has great length for his size. And he's fighting against Ivan Erslan, who I don't think is a joke. But I think he's probably about a step up from Tukatokos. I think he beats Tukatokos, but I don't think he's a whole lot better. He did have some championship bouts in KSW, which I respect. And KSW is one of those promotions that I think are one of the best top 3 in the world. But his fight with Ion Cutelaba was less than inspiring. It was less than inspiring for both guys, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. But I think that Ion won that unanimously. His wrestling defense wasn't on point. I don't think that he's going to go out there and try to wrestle Navajo Sterling, and I think Navajo Sterling can defend it. Because right now it is a question for Navajo Sterling whether or not he's going to be great on the ground, whether he can defend the takedowns. But I don't think it's going to be tested in this fight. I think the UFC is doing a good job of bringing him up. And I could see him getting his first highlight reel finish in this fight. Early as the first, but I think it's probably going to be in the second. I think Ivan's going to gas out because Sterling's going to select shots and put a pace on him.
I'll let you have that one, not only because it was your name, but Witt is a very well documented light heavyweight enjoyer.
Indeed.
Navajo Sterling out of New Zealand versus Ivan Erslan out of Croatia. We got 10 knockout wins for Erslan. And like you said, his last fight against Cutelaba, he took the split decision loss. And you got Navajo Sterling, who is yet to get an L in his professional record. Won his UFC debut against Tukatokos, like you said. who was very unfortunate we did not get to shit on him last week.
Indeed.
However, Navajo Sterling's got a hype train. Hopefully his hype train doesn't get derailed like Bo Nichols did last week. I'll take him here. I got Navajo Sterling to win this fight 30-27 decision.
3027.
Modestus Bukaki versus Ion Cutelaba. From one light heavyweight fight to another, the Baltic Gladiator with his 10 knockouts and 17 wins. It's just like I just said it and just let it rock, man. Versus Ian Cutelaba, also dubbed as the Hulk, with his 13 wins by knockout and 19 professional wins. This might be. I mean, I don't want to step on your toes here with being a light heavyweight enjoyer, but on paper, this looks to me like it potentially could be a jobber off.
We'll see. We'll see. I think both these guys are in their prime right now. You know, they're both coming off of statement victories, and man, Alan Cutelaba, he's been here for a long time. He's been here for a very long time, and he's only 31. That's nuts, man. He's been in the UFC since he was 23, 24, and that's crazy for light heavyweight, man. He's fought against some of the best guys in the world. He's beaten Khalil Roundtree. And, I countered him out against Arslan. I countered out against Ibo Aslan. And he put together a great performance against Aslan. And I have to respect that because Ibo Aslan was getting a lot of hype, but he exposed a hole in his game early. And the Baltic Gladiator, some people know that he came back from one of the most gruesome knee injuries in the history of the sport. Like, this dude's knee was on the side of his leg after a Khalil Roundtree oblique kick. He recovered. He came back the next year, won a Cage Warriors belt, and he's back, and he's been 4-1 since he's been in the UFC. And I watched his fight with Pratchett. That was one of my favorite fights of last year. He took a crazy kick in the pocket, head kick in the pocket, straight to the jaw, and he survived it. Especially after he rocked Pratchett. That was a great fight, and he's found a submission late in the third, and that would have been probably a split decision. I don't know who would have won it. I haven't really thought about it quite a bit because we'll never know the result of it, but it was a very highly contested fight. And that's why it really makes no sense to me why his next match is what it was. He gave him Rafael Sequeira off a loss, and he came in there as his favorite, and he proved it. He made it look easy. And him and Cutelaba fought on that same card, and they said, fuck it, dude. Let's fight each other at 315. And I think both these guys have quite a bit of momentum right now. They look very good. But I don't think Cutelaba is going to be able to expose Modestus on the ground like he has these last two fighters he's faced. He's been known to be a little bit of a brawler, but he's been a little bit more calculated, Cutelaba has. And I think Bukauskas, I think he's heading for ranked status. He's definitely the winner of this, I think, definitely gets a ranked fight. I'm going to say that. I don't know who it's going to be against because Alonzo Minifield's already booked. So they will likely get a ranked fight. I would be surprised if they did in the winter, especially if they get a finish. But I'm going to take Modestus to win this fight. I think he's going to get a KO pretty early. I think Ion's not going to be able to take him down, and he's going to get impatient because he's won his last two fights via the wrestling. And Modestus, he's a little bit more advanced than that. I like his kicks. I like his patience. And I think that's going to do him a lot of favors in this fight.
I think that I'll disagree. I think Ion Cutelaba is going to knock Modestus out 2 minutes into the second round.
Hell yeah. It's a 50-50 fight. It's beautiful. According to the odds, it's a 50-50 fight.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
it's one of
take us
those
to the
fights.
next fight, Mr. Barnes. It is not 50-50 odds.
Yeah. And the last thing about that fight, man, like I hate the fight because it has to be maybe somebody has to lose, but I think it's gonna be a banger. But that brings us into Canada's very own Jasmine Jazdavicius, or Jasudavicius, I believe, versus Jessica Andrade. And Jasmine Jasudavicius has been on an absolute tear. I've seen 3 or 4 of her fights at this point. She's been very active. Yeah. She has won by submission on the Moreno Albatsi card, and she has her most recent win here in February in the Adesanya Abu Dhabi card. She's been on fire. She's been climbing these rankings. She's looked really good. Looks like she's in her prime right now. But on the other side, you see Jessica Andrade, who is a former champ. You know, they'll never be able to take it away from her, regardless of how she won it and how she followed up her defense. But she has not been what you would say on a tear. You know, she's beaten Mackenzie Dern and Marina Rodriguez, who retired this last weekend. Lost Natalie Silva, Natalia Silva, who I believe we'll talk about later in this card. She's always went up against higher competition, and she's been in the game a lot longer. But Jasmine Jasudavicius has a lot of momentum. I think she's going to have the advantage in the wrestling and having less damage on her than Jessica. With Jessica, she's typically a very powerful striker, but she has a lot less momentum. She is also in Jasmine Jasudavicius' backyard, who might be, I don't think it's crazy to say that she is the biggest fighter out of Canada right now. I want to take Jasmine Jasudavicius. I don't love this line. I think Andrade has a puncher's chance about any fight she's in. So I would stick away from it if you all are gambling individuals out there. But I'm going to take Jasmine to win this fight. I don't think she's going to get a sub, but I think she can control her and get a 30-27.
I agree that Jasmine's going to win, but I mean, I can see why people might be skeptical of her. I mean, she has 13 career wins and she has 5 finishes. So she's a controller for sure. She's not necessarily a finisher. Where Jessica is a 26 wins, she has 18 finishes. So I mean, they have the same amount of decision wins, but there's 18 finishes instead of 5. So I see why people might be skeptical, but I got Jasmine to win this fight, and I think she does it exactly how you said. 30-27, controls the entire fight. Utter domination in her motherland of Canada. We have Mike Malott versus Charles Radke. Canadian versus United States member. Even though, it says right here on UFC that this guy's from Canada, but it lists his country as United States, so that's fun. 11-2-1 is the record for Malott versus Charles Radke's 10-4 record. Both of these guys coming off of a win. 1-inch reach advantage for Malott, 1-inch leg reach advantage, and about 3 inches of height difference between the two in Malott's favor. That being said, Mike Malott calls himself proper, which is properly gay. He lost to Neil Magny by literal last second TKO. If it was a 3-round fight, if not, then he lost in the 3rd round. So he's 2-1 in his last 5, or 2-1 in his last 3, versus his opponent, Mr. Charles Chuck Buffalo Radke. That's quite the name. 7 finishes in his 10 wins. In his last 2 fights, he is also 2-1. His only loss in his last 2 coming via first round knockout by Carlos Prates, who, shout out to him, he did just lose, but Carlos Prates is a problem. So that's not a bad loss, even though the fight before he knocked out a guy. He knocked out Urbina in the same exact time that he got knocked out by Prates, which is a little interesting tidbit to throw in there. I think if you look at this from the line perspective, you have, well, I can't even see it. So if you look at it from the line perspective, this fight's a draw. That being said, I'm just going to take my homeboy Chuck Buffalo Charles Radke to win this fight, probably by unanimous decision.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Malott did lose in the biggest position in his career, and that was indeed a 3-round fight that he was absolutely dominating before he gassed out and he got put in full mount and he got absolutely clobbered, took too many strikes, and the ref called it. Tough scene for him because he would have been ranked. He was on a 4-fight streak where he was finishing guys. Not the best competition, but that's what you're supposed to do against not the best competition. You're supposed to finish these guys, and that's what he was doing. He bounced back with a win over Trevin Giles. Chinny guy, very athletic, decent win. And I think that win alone is better than anything Charles Radke has done. Charles Radke is a good boxer. He's an aggressive guy. He's going to put on a good fight. I think there's going to be a finish in this fight, but, the 3 guys he's faced are much lower level. I don't think any of them are in the UFC. I think Simmelsberger got cut after that fight in the Magny Prates card. And I know Blood Diamond is not in the UFC. He's also a city kickboxing guy. But he hasn't faced the best competition. He got starched by Carlos Prates, like you said. Mike Malott, he's in his motherland. This is going to be a higher level, it's going to be a higher pressure fight like the Magny fight because he is going to feel like he has to perform. He is going to feel like. And I just want to be sure. Yeah, so that Moreno Albazi card, I was going to mention it earlier, but I wasn't certain. That card was also in Canada. So he is coming off a win in his motherland. Just like Marc-Andre Barrios coming off a loss in his motherland. But coming off a win in his motherland, he's in a spot here. I think he might move up to the pay-per-view because the Benoit Saint Denis card has moved off. I think it's going to move down because of the opponent. So I think this could be a pay-per-view fight. He's going to be in a big spot to get some pay-per-view points. I think he's going to pull off a nasty sub in the second round. I think he's going to be the first to sub Charles Radke. And I think he's going to put on for his city and pump up the crowd and feel the energy in that establishment. Or the arena, whatever.
Hell yeah, brother. Well, if it's not moved up to the pay-per-view, then we'll move on now to what potentially could be the first pay-per-view fight. As Whit previously mentioned, we did have an opponent of Benoit Saint Denis drop out, so they might flip these 2 fights around. That being said, we have the most absurd betting line you may ever see in your life. Benoit Saint Denis, the 13th ranked lightweight contender, fighting Kyle Prepolek, who is making a very, very short notice appearance to this fight. Comes in as a 180 favorite, much to Witt's absolute displeasure. Killshot, as he is nicknamed. He has 12 wins in his career, 10 of them by knockout, 7 defeats. He has, as I believe you mentioned maybe before, he has been in the UFC once before and he was cut. He last fought. This guy's last fight was a unanimous decision loss to Austin Hubbard. That was in 2019, I believe. That card was Cowboy Cerrone versus Justin Gaethje was the main event of that fight, where Gaethje won by a first round knockout. Glover Teixeira fought on that card. That just lets you know how old that fight was. That means Uriah Hall fought on that card. There's another giveaway for how long ago that was. That being said, this man was 0-2 in the UFC, got cut, somehow made his way back, making a short notice appearance against Benoit Saint Denis, also known as the God of War, who definitely looks like he took a dukester in the top level of your toilet and is not going to tell you until you find it one day.
Indeed.
And then you're absolutely disgusted and appalled. He also looks like his face shrinks whenever he closes his mouth, and I think that's just the way that his beard sits. But 13 wins in his career, all 13 of them coming by finish, 4 by knockout, 9 by submission. He did lose his last fight to Moicano via doctor stoppage, and he lost his fight before that to Dustin Poirier, which is never a bad loss to have. So in his last 2 fights, he's 1-2. I think that means nothing. I think he's probably feeling slightly disrespected, if not by the fact that he was given a shit can of an opponent, but especially by the fact that he was given the shit can of opponent and now he's the underdog in this fight. I think he comes out with a vengeance. 3 minutes into the first round, puts this dude in a rear naked choke and knocks his lights out.
I mean, man, where'd you get those odds from?
UFC.
Yeah, UFC's on crack. I did go on a fightodds.io to look at what some sports books are doing it as. And Benoit Saint Denis is a minus 1,200. I think that's a little bit more accurate than what the UFC was putting out. I think he could close as a minus 2,000. I think there will be action. I think a lot of people are going to put money on Benoit Saint Denis, and that line's not going to scare him. Because, not to mince words here, but this is going to be an absolute fucking murder. I can't believe this fight was made.
Check your Snapchat right now. I just sent it to you so you can see what the tomfoolery that I've been seeing.
Yeah, that is a minus 180. That is a minus 180, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if y'all be able to see it, but somewhere in there, it's minus 180 on UFC as of Monday, May 5th at 9:37 p.m. Central Standard Time, which this fight was made, to be fair, this fight was made this afternoon. So I've been kind of trying to look into some information about it. A lot of people are calling Benoit Saint Denis for accepting this opponent. They're trying to call him a fraud and a bitch because I know Mateusz Rebecki called him out on Twitter, and I know Mateusz Gamrot, 2 Mateuszes, also called him out and said that he declined the fight. But the UFC may have not wanted to make it. Both those dudes are from Europe, Asia, one of the two. And for them to get a visa in Canada, it may be difficult to do on a few days' notice. That's my speculation. Because if you're Benoit Saint Denis, why would you not want to fight the number 7 ranked guy in the lightweight division? That doesn't make any sense. I don't think he's a coward. I think there was other issues outside of what everybody knows at this time. But he gets Kyle Prepolek, a guy that doesn't have to worry about getting a visa because he's from Canada. And allegedly he was trained to fight somebody on the regional scene this weekend. Sucks to be him, but he's fighting Benoit Saint Denis now. And he is also, in his 2 UFC fights that were in Canada, he's 0-2 in Canada in the UFC. He's 0-2 in his motherland. He's fighting a guy who is quite literally in the military in France, like the highest level. He's like a Navy SEAL or like a Marine. But this guy quite literally killed people. Many of them. He is an absolute marauder. He's going to march forward. Kyle Prepolek is not going to be able to wrestle him like Moicano did. He's not Dustin Poirier, a Hall of Famer and a legend. This is going to be an absolute landslide of a fight. They may keep it on the pay-per-view just to get the fans hype to start the pay-per-view because this is going to end in a knockout. This is going to be, if this makes it out of the first round, it'll be insane. I will be shocked if this makes it out of the first round.
I hope they do keep it on the pay-per-view, because if they're gonna let this man get used as a fucking stunt man for Benoit Saint Denis, at least this guy makes pay-per-view money for doing this fight. So I hope they do keep it on the pay-per-view.
Be very nice of them. He's damn good.
That being said, Benoit Saint Denis by literal whatever he wants.
quite literally. That's the most lopsided fight I've probably ever seen.
On to an interesting one. We got Alexa Grasso versus Natalia Silva. A heavy favorite for Natalia Silva on this one. I don't really think that Grasso is capable of fighting anyone except Shevchenko, because that seems to be the only person she's fucking fought for the last 3 years. That being said, she's fighting a different opponent this time on the same card as Valentina. Four wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission, and 16 wins for Grasso. She calls herself Alexa Grasso. She has no nickname. Natalia Silva, 12 wins, or 18 wins, 12 wins in a row for her. 5 by knockout, 7 by submission. Only 6 decisions. Like I just previously said, she's on a 12-fight win streak. I see no reason why she doesn't dethrone the number 1 contender in the women's flyweight division here and make it 13 wins in a row and get her shot at the title with Valentina Shevchenko should she win her fight against Manon Farrell.
Manon Farrell. I mean, what more can I really say, man? Because what, you just picked Silva, man? I mean, I'm probably going to have to agree. Because I think Grasso's only path to victory is she flukes out a sub like she did against Shevchenko in the first fight. And Natalia Silva hasn't been submitted for over 10 years and that was in her first professional fights. I think she's a much more layered striker. I think she's going to be able to land volume. And she's younger. She has less wear and tear. She hasn't fought the highest level of competition, which I think in this situation is going to be a good thing. Getting a finish is going to be difficult, especially on Alex Grasso because she still is pretty high level. But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. But that being said, I'm still not going to pick a finish. I'm going to take a decision here. 30-27. I'm going to take Natalie Silva. This line, I will say, I think it's a little disrespectful to Grasso, plus 190. I wouldn't bet on women's MMA period because that shit's a coin flip. But line's disrespectful if you're into my opinion on that type of a matter.
Boy, oh boy, do we ever have a treat for OG UFC fans here. We have an unk-off between Jose Aldo,
The King of Rio.
Best known, in my opinion, for getting knocked out in 30 seconds by Conor McGregor for the championship, versus Amin Zahabi, the Canadian man himself, at the age of 37 years old. If you gave me 10 guesses to guess where this guy was from, but just off the way that he looks, Canada would never be one of those 10. But dude's on a tear. He's won 5 of his last 5 fights. So he's on an absolute tear. He's 12-2 in his career, 6 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission. All 8 of those finishes have come in the first round, so if he finishes you, he does it early. Jose Aldo, 32 wins and 9 losses in his career, 17 wins by knockout, 1 by submission. A little bit more slower paced fighter is Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo, man, it baffles me every time I see this card pop up and think that he's still fighting. He is the betting favorite on this one. UFC website has him at minus 230. I don't mind that line. He is 1-2 in his last three fights, but those losses came to which favorite fighter, Mario Bautista, mixed in with he lost to Merab Dvalishvili, the Machine, who is the current title holder. So I mean, what can you really say about that? So I think that Aldo wins this fight. I don't see a snowball's chance in hell that there's a finish in these fights. Maybe, maybe there is, because both of these unks are probably going to gas out by round three. If there is a finish, I say it's a late ground and pound TKO for Jose Aldo. If not, it's a 29-28 decision win for Jose Aldo. Maybe even a split decision.
Man, why the fuck is Amin Zahabi ranked? Like, he might be the second worst ranked fighter in the UFC because, dude, how are you gonna get ranked off a win over Pedro Munoz in the big 2024, bro? That makes absolutely no sense. Javid Bashara, that win hasn't aged well either.
Damn.
He's on a 2-fight losing streak. He got absolutely clobbered by Ricky Simone. You know, that last fight with Jose Aldo, I think a lot of people are really pissed off about it, myself included, because Mario Batista did nothing in that whole entire fight but hold him against the cage and avoid fighting whatsoever. If you go look on the internet, Twitter, Instagram, you will find a clip of him being separated from the cage. As soon as he gets separated, dives for the legs again and fails another takedown, holds him against the cage for another 20 seconds. Didn't land anything of damage. While Jose Aldo was out striking him and landing damage upon him, Mario Batista was scared. We'll talk about him later. He didn't lose that fight. I think that's like a consensus amongst all fans. Dana White even said it in the presser. It was absolutely ridiculous because Jose Aldo was like kind of tired of fighting guys like Bautista and Martinez. He was like, give me a bigger name up the rankings. Let me see if I can make a run at this. And unfortunately, he doesn't get that because the judges were off of some substances that night. I think it means a hobby. I don't think he's deserving of his 13th ranked. He is in front of a Canadian crowd, which is cool. But Jose Aldo, he is able to stand the test of time, even down a weight class. He's beaten some great fighters on every level. One of the greatest featherweights to ever grace the planet. Has the most defenses, I believe, in the history of that division. I think it means the hobby's in for a rude awakening. He's not going to be able to take him down. And he's not going to be able to stand with him, so his only option is to hold him against the cage. I think with the backlash on that last loss, if he does hold him against the cage, he's not going to be awarded the victory. So I'm going to give Jose Aldo the benefit of it, and I think this is going to be a vintage performance. I don't think he's going to get held against the cage. I think he's going to get a knockout via a bus driver uppercut here in the second round.
The bus driver upcut. I'm going to let you do this next one, Mr. Barnes. Go ahead and tell me what you're thinking.
I mean, we got Valentino Shevchenko and Manon Fiorot, man. This is about as good as it gets as far as women fights. Like, all these women's fights on this card, I think they're going to have a decent amount of action. They have a lot of great strikers. Valentino Shevchenko, layered kickboxer, has been doing this for quite some time. As far as flyweight women, she's got to be up there for the best to do it. I don't really know how much Amanda Nunes fought at flyweight in her day. I know she did a lot of bantamweight and featherweight fights, so she could be there because she is probably the second best women's fighter to me. Amanda Nunes, I would say. What was her face? Chris Cyborg is, as an MMA fighter, is the GOAT because how many different promotions she's won in. But that's all past the point. We're talking about Valentino Shevchenko. She has a lot of title wins. She went on a trilogy with Alex Grasso pretty recently. She is able to avenge the loss. You know, the draw was very controversial. A lot of people think that she pulled that fight out. I personally didn't watch it, so I don't have much of an opinion on it. But Manon Fiorot, she's also a very nice striker. And for whatever reason, she's a favorite in this fight. I don't really see why she is. She is on a 12 fight win streak, which is impressive. But she's not going out here and finishing fights. Like Rose Namajunas, great win. Erin Blanchfield, another great win, you know. Those two fought recently, and it was a very good fight. Blanchfield and Namajunas did. But Shevchenko, I think she's more well-rounded. She has developed wrestling along with her kickboxing acumen. Manafaro, she's more of a striker on every level. She's gonna be able to defend the takedown, but Shevchenko, she's been in way too many striking stand-up fights to, I think, be exploited by really anybody in the world, especially at the women's flyweight division. I'm gonna take her to win this fight. I think this is gonna be a calculated, drawn-out fight. 48-47 Shevchenko. That's what I think. She's going to edge it. Eventually, she's going to have to lose because time catches up to everybody, but I don't think it's going to be Saturday.
I do.
Ooh.
I'm going to say something that's very controversial here. Maybe. I think Valentina Shevchenko's a fraud.
Oh.
I think she's an absolute fraud.
Fraudtina.
She loses the fight to Grasso late in the fight. In my opinion, she loses again, gets the draw. They fight again. She wins by unanimous decision. She can't finish her. She can't finish her off. I think the wins that Manon Farrow has, you know, beating Blanchfield and G.I. Jane like that back to back, I think that those wins are far more impressive than the win that Shevchenko had over Grasso. I think that Manon Farrow's going to knock her dumb ass out, and I think she does it in round 3 and starts a run at the title. I think she extends her win streak to 13, and that's exactly what's going to happen. That's all there is to it. I love the line.
That'd be a banger of a fight, man. An absolute war.
I think Manon Farrow's going to knock her out. I really do. Holy shit. We have reached the pinnacle of the event. I don't even know which one of us should start because we both got a lot to say.
Well, you're not going to come up with an argument with me. I'm going to start this shit.
Okay.
Bilal Muhammad. Man, there's a lot of people that aren't good guys in the UFC. Like, it's not like, you know, this isn't Boy Scouts, you know. There's a lot of people that are douche nozzles in this sport, like John Jones. Everybody knows what he's done with his past and all that stuff. But he is a fight finisher, and he's a decent person. A lot of people are like, well, wait, why don't you like Bilal Muhammad? Well, because this guy's a money grubber, right? So, on Twitter, some time ago, because I've never really liked Bilal Muhammad's fighting style. I think he stalls fights more than he tries to finish them. And people will call that smart. Me, I call that avoiding the fight. But I'm not here to really talk about that yet, right? This guy had this thing on on Twitter called the War Room, and he was like, hey, send in applications. You'll get to talk to my coaches about nutrition. You'll be able to get some training regimens in case people want to fight. I'm only accepting a certain amount of people. I really want to help people out, right? And I was like, that's pretty cool. You know, I'd like to talk to some UFC coaches at gyms and stuff. That'd be great, you know, to have that experience. And keep in mind, there's no price on this, right? So I have to go in here and fill out this application. It took me about an hour to do, right? Keep in mind, there's no money involved yet in this. I fill out all this stuff, kind of tell them like the story of my life, why I want to train, why I want to talk to these coaches and consult them. The very end, after I'm done doing all that shit, it says, hey, you'll need $1,000 to $3,000 for this program. Do you have that? And I said, no, I don't have $1,000 to $3,000 for this program. I thought this shit was free before I went and filled out all this stuff. So one of these, because this is like some sort of online course type thing. It's not anybody from his team. Some guy that's trying to sell this to me calls me an hour later, and he was like, "Hey man, so why'd you want to do this?" And I told him why I wanted to do it. I was like, "Well, I kind of typed something out, but I was interested." Long story short, and he says, "Well, you're gonna need like $3,000 down." I was like, "Brother, I don't have $3,000, and I don't know why this wasn't put in the first place on the front." And he was like, "Well, we want people to sign up, all this, and this." And I was like, "Fuck you." And fuck Bilal for putting this together. Because if you actually wanted to help people, and if you actually wanted to pour into people's lives, you wouldn't do it behind a paywall at the very end, right? If you have to pay for somebody's friendship or somebody's mentorship, they're not really your mentor in the first place, and they really just want your money. And I think Bilal Muhammad's a greedy guy that is trying to prey off people that want to move up in their lives and their careers. And I think he's trying to take money out of their pocket for his gain because he doesn't care about your career. He doesn't. Especially, he's doing it for money. And I think that says a lot about who he is, and says a lot about who he is in the cage as well. This guy, he does get decision victories, but he's done it against decent competition, and he's done it against great competition as well. It's been a mix, but he's a decision merchant, as you can tell. You know, he has a standing TKO against Sean Brady. You know, some would argue that it was early. You're not going to hear it from me because he did take too many strikes, so technically you could call it. But Sean Brady wasn't necessarily hurt. And the other two guys he finished were not really the biggest names. One was a ground and pound finish, and another was a rear naked choke. But there's one thing that I look at here in all these fights is how many of these guys are great boxers. How many of these guys? Not very many, right? Leon Edwards, his weakness is going to be pressure wrestling and boxing, as was proven by Bilal. And that's Bilal's fighting style, pressure wrestling and boxing. One guy on this list who is a layered boxer is Jeff Neal. Jeff Neal beat him. He stuffed his takedowns and he outboxed him. There are better boxers than Bilal Muhammad. He claims to be Canelo Alvarez level boxing is what this guy claims. Go look at it. It's on his internet. It's on his Twitter. He'll tell you to your face that he thinks he's Canelo Alvarez. Jack Della Maddalena is easily the best boxer in this division. He has good power. He has great combos. There is a path to victory for Amir if he watches that Jeff Neal fight. And honestly, he probably didn't even have to watch it. He has to stuff these takedowns. If he stuffs those takedowns, Bilal Muhammad isn't going to want to trade with him. He's not going to land as much damage as him. And I think Bilal's going to be in some trouble because Bilal is getting older. He is 36. He's been in a lot of fights. He's been in a lot of long fights at that. And he has taken damage. He took damage in the he took more damage in the Leon Edwards fight than he dealt out. And Leon Edwards did that in one round. He was too timid. Lost the fight 48-47 clearly. But the major issue for picking this fight is there is a clear path to victory for both of these guys here. You know, I don't like Bilal Muhammad, but at the end of the day, I have to analyze these fights, and I have to pick who thinks going to win. Bilal Muhammad is able to take down Jack Della Maddalena, who has historically struggled with wrestlers. Bazal Hafez pressure wrestled him. 20 takedowns. He attempted 20 takedowns, landed 3. He was able to control him for 7 minutes, right? Gilbert Burns was on his way to winning that fight. That 3-round fight back in 2024. Jack Della Maddalena is able to elbow him into the canvas and figure it out. But man, Bilal Muhammad will be content to sit in half guard and hold him there for that whole entire fight. He will try to pressure him into takedowns, which I think will be a lot difficult to do than he anticipates, right? You can't really effectively take a guy down if you're moving backwards. So I think that Jack Della Maddalena and his team have been working on the wrestling, and I think that they have talked about bringing the fight to Bilal Muhammad. I believe that's what he's going to do. I think he is going to be the pressure boxer in this situation, which will neutralize the takedowns. And damn it, I think Bilal Muhammad is going to get finished for the fourth. Wait. I think this will be the second time in his career he's gotten finished off the top of my head. Maybe the third.
So,
yep,
the fight that you mentioned against Jeff Neal,
yes,
where he lost to a boxer, To put into perspective for you people that may not know how long ago that was in actual retrospect of the UFC, Greg Hardy was the second fight after the main event on that card.
Okay.
He was the second. He lost that fight by disqualification. We're going to go on that fun little rabbit hole real quick. In that same card, Henry Cejudo beat TJ Dillashaw for the flyweight title fight. He beat him in 32 seconds by knockout. Paige Van Zant and Glover Teixeira both fought on that card. Corey Sandhagen won. He beat Mario Bautista by armbar in 3 minutes. And Bilal Muhammad was the second fight of the card. That's how long ago that was.
Yeah, all I will say to counter that is he has not fought a boxer like Jeff Neal since. He has not. Not a single
Oh,
one.
don't get me wrong. Drag Della Maddalena is winning this fight by first round knockout. Standing TKO.
Standing TKO. And I just want to put the record straight for the people out there with what I said about Bilal Muhammad. If you want to charge people to help them, charge people to help them. But put a price on it. Be honest about it up front. Don't make people spend time, put their heart into an application just for them, just to say, oh, well, we're actually going to charge you money at the very end. You know, be honest with people, and your business will probably do well if you're honest with people. If you're not honest with people, you know, and then you go on the internet and act like you're the baddest man on the planet when you've never knocked anybody down in your career, you know, I'm going to have something to say about you, because you can see a man's character when he's in the ring. And my character analysis of Bilal Muhammad is that he's kind of a sketchy guy.
How are you going to win by staying? You couldn't even knock Sean Brady down when you stand and knocked him out.
No.
He was out on his feet. You couldn't even knock him down. You're a bozo. You're a fraudulent bastard. You're a bum. You know what? Now it's my turn. Let's get after it. So, we're going to talk about Mr. Bilal Muhammad here and all these people that think he's so fucking great. Let's go on your last 5 fights here. You beat Stephen Thompson. Decision. You beat Vincent LeCue. Decision. You knock out Sean Brady, if you want to call it that. Cool. You fight Gilbert Burns. Cool. Decision. Oh, Bilal, he's such a good fighter. He's getting the title fight against Leon Edwards. Well, let's talk about Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards is a fraudulent bastard. He was fighting a fight against Kamaru Usman that he was losing horrifically. That fight was probably going to be like a 50 to 45 type fight. He was getting absolutely devastated. Pulls a head kick out of nowhere and knocks out Kamaru Usman. Now he's the title holder. Oh, Leon Edwards dominated that fight. No, he fucking didn't. He got absolutely owned the entire fight. Pulled some head kick out of his ass because his coach told him, stop feeling sorry for yourself, Leon. That's what his coach told him. And it inspired him. Great on his coach. But it inspired him to fraudulently kick Kamaru Usman in the head and knock him out. And then, let's go on to Leon Edwards. Let's go. You know what? We're not done with you, Leon. You thought you were getting out of it, but you're not. So you go and win. You beat Kamaru Usman by knockout. 56 minutes before you suffer a humiliating loss in a title fight. People talk about that for 50 years. Then you beat the now retarded Kamaru Usman because you kicked him in the side of the head. His brain is knocked off of the stem. You take him to a majority decision. So you couldn't even unanimously beat a man that's half retarded now. You go and fight Colby Covington, who's a known fraud. A known fraud.
And out of his prime.
So desperate to stay relevant that he shows up to UFC 314 to try to talk shit to Paddy Pimblett after Paddy Pimblett just pulverized Michael Chandler into the ground. So desperate for attention, but you beat him by unanimous decision. Now I'm supposed to believe that you're a fantastic champion, that you can defend your belt like that. Then you face another fraud. It's a fraud off. Bilal Muhammad. You lose by unanimous decision because you can't keep your fucking dick off the dirt and you get held down for 5 rounds. Then Sean Brady comes to your home country. He comes to your home country and submits you and absolutely dominates you for the entire fight. Guess what? That was a 5-round fight. You were headed, if that fight made it to the cards, you were headed for another 50-45 decision loss. You were heading for it again. And now people want me to think that Bilal Muhammad is some great champion because he beat Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards, a very commonly thought of fraud. No one likes Leon Edwards. No one likes Bilal Muhammad. You know what? I don't want to say it. I don't care that he broke his elbow. This guy's a fucking fraud. He's a bum. And he's getting knocked out in the first round. If not the first round, then the second round. If not the second round, then the third round. If not the third round, then the fourth round. If not the fourth round, then the fifth round. Jack Della Maddalena is going to win this fucking title. He may not hold it for long after, but he's going to win it. And Bilal Muhammad is going to find his way tanking down the rankings because he's a fraud. He's a fraudulent bastard. He's a money-hungry cunt. And I hope that he actually loses this fight and gets his head used as a fucking basketball by Jack Della Maddalena. And that's all I've got to say about that.
Amen. And you reminded me something I was going to say earlier. I was thinking about this fight in the car earlier, right? So, let's go back to Damian Maia here on Bilal Muhammad's fight list. Damian Maia, out of his prime. Stephen Thompson, out of his prime. Vicente Luque, out of his prime. Sean Brady was in his prime. Cool. Outlier. Gilbert Burns, out of his prime. Leon Edwards, you saw what happened to him in his last fight. You're fighting a boxer, type fighter in his prime at 28 years old. You're on the downhill decline. You're done, bro. You're done. You're done.
Prove us wrong.
Do it, Bilal. Do it.
Prove us wrong.
Do it, and then you can push your war room and have more
Please
people to fill out.
Prove us wrong. Don't prove us wrong. That's what we're hoping for. Prove us wrong if you want to. Fucking fraud. You look like a fucking skinny version of DJ Khaled. Fuck off my screen.
DJ Khaled. Fuck.
That being said, that brings us to the end of UFC 315 predictions with some very strong words for the fraudulent bastard that is Bilal Muhammad. Oh, man. Whit, do you have anything else to say on the matter? Fucking frauds.
I'm just shaking my head, man. The fact that I'm going to have back-to-back weeks of hate watches, right? I think it ends for me next week. There's nobody I particularly dislike. It doesn't end for you, though.
There is.
It doesn't end for you. It doesn't end for you. We'll speak on them.
Not
we'll
even
speak
close.
on them. But, dude, FRAUDLAL, I hope your time comes. If not this fight, then you have to face Shavkat Rakhmonov. You have to face him. Eventually, you're going to have to face the boogeyman of the welterweight division. And he isn't coming there to decision you. He isn't going to have a torn ACL either. So good luck. But it's not going to happen. It's a hypothetical. And we'll never know. It's going to be JDM, Shavkat for the belt. And you, sir, are going to get starched in front of a sold-out Canada crowd. Good day to be Canadian.
I just went and looked to see who Paul Craig was fighting. That is incredibly unfortunate for him.
Amen.
That's who I'm thinking of, right? That guy's part of the fighting nerds, right?
He's not. No, that's Caio Barallo.
No. This guy, I don't care. He's Brazilian, he's big, and he's going to fucking demolish him. All right, so next week, stay tuned for my rant. Wit's had back-to-back weeks of a rant. I just had a strong opinion of the last two fights on this card, and it's not going to change next week either. there's a certain guy from Britain that I'm looking at in that next card that I'm not a huge fan of. And I'm going to tell you why. All that and more on the next episode of Dragon Ball Z.
In the Apex.
Yeah, fucking Apex. An absolute shame that they brought Gilbert Burns and Michael Morales to the Apex, but it is
From this
what it
card.
is. They had to. Well, I mean, it's not really a shame because they had to salvage that. Because what were they going to do? Put Paul Craig as the main event again?
In the Apex.
In the Apex.
You have been sentenced
So
to
get
the
ready
Apex.
for an absolute snooze fest next week, and you'll fall asleep before the fight card ends. I guarantee it, or your money back. That being said, we appreciate everybody for stopping in. Bilal Muhammad, you don't get to go to any of our sponsors, you money hungry fucking cunt. But for everyone else, not Bilal Muhammad, Paul Craig, or Kevin Holland, check out Shank It Golf. Use code CronYo Media for 15% off. Cowboy Revolution. Use code CronYo Media for 15% off. W.GG. CronYo Media for 10% off at checkout. Be sure to follow us on Instagram. Be sure to follow us on YouTube. Be sure to follow us on Twitter, where Wit is very active in the UFC scene. That being said, we appreciate everybody for watching. Hope everyone out there has a fantastic night, and we'll see you in the next one.
In the Apex.